Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel and the second video in this free course on Clarkian Apologetics. Today what I want to talk about is Gordon Clark's view of philosophy in general, as well as his distinction between disjointed and systemized truths. Now, when you look at philosophy, and this is an observation that Gordon Clark himself made, when someone first looks at philosophy, it's really amazing how irrelevant a lot of the discussions about philosophy tend to be to the person that's reading the book. A lot of people dismiss philosophy as being irrelevant and impractical. And sometimes that's because philosophy gets into a lot of detail about different issues. And a lot of secular philosophy, especially, actually does not make a whole lot of sense. There's some discussions that just sound intuitively crazy to us that are looking upon, because a lot of these discussions go against what we would call conventional wisdom. And there are a few things that we find. First off, conventional wisdom isn't always really conventional, and it's not always wisdom. Other times, there are things that that philosophy does propose that are truly preposterous. And there's so many different views in philosophy that whenever a reader first looks at it, they can be overwhelmed. You know, philosophy answers questions like, is there a God? If we can know anything at all, how do we know it? Is there any such thing as morals? Or is it all just conventions? Is there any purpose for man? Is there any purpose for the universe? There's all kinds of questions that philosophy attempts to answer, and there's so many different competing explanations and answers for the same questions. The way Clark saw it, whenever you look at the world, it's like a puzzle. It's a puzzle, and you have to put together a view that accurately represents the truths in this world. And when Clark would look at philosophy, to him, his job was to arrange truths into a logical system. The first part of the logical system being the axiom. And the axiom that Gordon Clark chose for his worldview was, the Bible is the Word of God. And we'll get into axioms, and we'll get into that particular axiom and its implications later. And then from that axiom, there were theorems. And theorems are propositions that are deduced from the axiom. And for Clark, these theorems had to be deduced by necessary consequence. For if it were not deduced by necessary consequence, then the theorem could be called into question, and there may be some problems with that worldview. When Clark looked at knowledge, he defined knowledge as the possession of the truth. And it is possible to have knowledge of something without actually being able to demonstrate that knowledge is true. Now, if that knowledge cannot be demonstrated, then so far as we are concerned, it's an opinion, because opinions can be either true or false, and they cannot be demonstrated. But knowledge is, when we look at it, we only call something knowledge if we can demonstrate it to be true. Even so, some people may accidentally stumble upon knowledge and they won't know it, but they have knowledge. Like, let's say, for instance, someone comes to believe that Yeshua is the Messiah, right? That is a true proposition in accordance with the Bible. So that happens to be true, and someone happens to believe it, but maybe they don't know how to show that that's true. Maybe they don't try and appeal to the Bible as they should. Maybe the way that they try and prove it is, or try to justify their claim, is epistemologically insufficient. But there are truths that are disjointed, and there are truths that are systemized. Now, systemized truths fit in accordance to a logical system, and these truths can be demonstrated either by deducing it by necessary consequence from an axiom, or maybe it's considered a truth just because it's the axiom of the system. And the axiom is the starting point of the system. And we will be getting more into axioms in the next video, and more into Gordon Clark's axiom at a later time. But whenever you look at this world, in order to be able to form any argument at all, there has to be some sort of assumption that there is some sort of unity in truth. That is to say that one truth implies the truth of a different truth. Okay? So if one truth is true, then there are certain implications, certain other truths that are derivatives of that truth. For instance, if the Bible is the Word of God, then it follows that there is a God. Because how could the Bible be a Word of God if there were not a God? So there are questions that also are interrelated, such as questions of politics. Should we be conservative, liberal, somewhere in between? a lot of the issues that are debated about between conservatives and liberals have to do with ethics. So there is a tie from politics to ethics. And then if we are to be able to know what is right and what is wrong ethically, then there has to be a way to know something at all, and that falls into the discipline of epistemology, the study of what we know and how we know it. So there are truths that are interconnected. Now, in a naturalistic worldview, it doesn't really make sense that truths are interconnected, because if there's no God, and if the universe is a product of happenstance, then all truths, if there are any at all, must be a product of happenstance. So, but if there's a God, and if He's all-knowing, and if He's known all things before the foundations of the earth were laid, if He does not learn anything because He knows it all already, then we would expect a world where there are certain truths that imply the truth of another truth. In other words, we would expect that truth is interconnected. And Clarke's view of truth being interconnected has to do with has a lot to do with his belief in God, in particular the God of the Bible. So we are going to be looking into, in the next video that I do on this series, into axioms, what they are, why they're necessary, what Clarke's axiom was, and we're going to talk about some of the implications of having an axiom. And then in a later video, we'll start going into Clarke's particular axiom and what the implications of that axiom is. So I hope this video was of help to you, and I hope you have a great day. God bless.